Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Yasmin Hussein, and I'm the Executive Assistant and Social Media Manager at Play for Peace. For those of you who are new, Play for Peace is a nonprofit organization that works globally to develop compassionate leaders in areas of conflict and connect people and communities to build lasting peace. We work with young people all over the world to train them and support them to become facilitators of experiential education and peace education, as well as leading community service efforts in their local communities. At the end of March, we created this at-home webinar series to support our communities in these new challenging times. We had Dr. Maury Lung from the US, a clinical psychologist, talk to us. And we had Reena Janwala from India, a nonviolence communication practitioner, speak with us as well. So today, I'm so excited for you to join us, Saeed. Saeed Diabat is a Play for Peace trainer based in Israel, who's been a part of Play for Peace since 2006. Saeed founded the Play for Peace Club, Youth for Change, Galilee, an initiative that started in 2013 that operates community projects to assist youth from underprivileged backgrounds through extension programs in youth rights and leadership and education. He's also a career consultant specializing in workforce readiness programs for the Arab minority in Israel. Saeed's goal is to engage with organizations to increase support to the Arab community and its youth group in Israel. So today, he'll be talking to us about digital education in these new times and sharing tips to educators and facilitators about different tools and resources for connecting and collaborating online. Again, Saeed, we're super excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Yasmin, for this opportunity. I'm also excited, and I want to thank all the watchers that are following us. Welcome, and I'm glad also to be in this webinar with you, and I hope it will be useful for you.
Yeah, thank you. So if you do you wanna share a little bit about yourself and some projects that you're working on currently?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I'm Said Diabat from Galilee region. I'm working on community projects, specializing in promoting education initiatives, higher education accessibility, and workforce readiness for minority groups in my region in Israel. I have a BA in psychology and Middle Eastern studies from Ben Gurion University and master on teaching of history and communication for high schools. These days, I'm studying for a master in organizational behavior and development at the interdisciplinary institution in Herzliya.
Mhm.
For the past 10 years, I'm working in several national projects in Israel meant to tackle challenges and social needs of minority groups in order to improve the social resilience and the economical involvement of these groups. My main focus is in and specialization is in working with the Arab Palestinian minority living in Israel, which contain almost 2 million people, and which through my position as a project manager at GTC, Global Humanitarian Organization, I lead projects tackle these problems of, for example, acquiring languages which are relevant to the job market, enhancing the skills and the competencies needed for the modern workplace, and also promoting the career advancement of marginalized groups in my community, especially among the Arab community in Israel, such as women, youth, elderly, people with special needs, and more underprivileged groups. As you mentioned that I'm with Play for Peace since 2006. Back then I was a student for my first degree, and since then the passion and the hope for starting a club among the Play for Peace community was in my in my head, and it happened 2013 when I can say that I'm a proud mentor and trainer of Youth for Change Galilee for the past 6.5 years. It brings promising young boys and girls to create community projects and social responsibility enhancement for their communities. So from here, I want to thank the Youth for Change Galilee members. I'm proud of you.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot of amazing work that you're doing. And again, we're so excited to have you a part of our webinar series. So if we want to go in and talk about, I was reading some articles before, and currently over more than 1.2 children in 186 different countries are affected by school closures due to the pandemic. And so a lot of things are shifting to online learning. And so, which brings us into your topic for today. If you want to pull up.
The title for today is Digital Education in a New Age, Using Technology to Connect and Collaborate. And I would like to start with a small introduction about this topic and speak about actually why we need this and how we came to this situation. So no doubt that online collaboration is an essential skill for working and learning in our connected world. And we will discover resources and more tools to make online collaboration seamless and productive. We will bring examples of tools in this session intended to help us if we are individuals working collaboratively or in projects or tasks. And that the aim from these tools is to equip us, the facilitators, in making meetings, workshops, learning sessions, and trainings to be more active, interactive, and more helpful for also the participants that we are working with. Yasmin, I will go through the slides, and I will talk a little bit about for who is the session will be great for. For example, if you are looking for professional collaboration, and by this we mean facilitating online collaboration with others, for instance, by hosting online meetings and workshops, or by engaging in online teamwork with individuals in different geographic locations. So that's sure that you will find a lot of tips from this session. Also, if you are making trainings and other learning experiences for groups and individuals, this will help you create and facilitate learning opportunities, including workshops and webinars like this for your participants. The information and content we will go through require familiarity with working with and communicating through digital technologies. They also require reliable internet connection. It's a very important thing also. And we know that sometimes we have difficulties with the participants that we are working with if they are found in places with no internet infrastructure or signal. That could be a little bit problematic. But this is something that we can also check before our workshops and before we plan it. Please note that while many of the information in this session can be used for individual work as well as team work and collaboration, we will primarily focus on supporting individuals who will use these resources and tools to work with others and facilitate online meetings or training. But sure, if you can find it helpful for other things, you can deploy it also. Before we start our going deeper to the digital technologies and tools, and how to use it, we need to take in mind a few things, and mainly about the virtual interactions. Because when we are working in an online environment, some aspects and group dynamics happen differently than in the real world. It will be different than when we are all physically in the same space and place. For example, time. When we are having an online session, perception of time is different. There will be an intensity in the execution, which could generate a compression of time with more things to done in a short period. From this, we can say also that if we're having a session of 3 hours long in regular situations, online, maybe we need to think of shortening it to 1.5 hours, and still it will be more intense. And for that, we also will need to prepare. On the other hand, preparation require way more effort, because it will be more detailed. Sometimes we will need to prepare and plan our online workshop minute by minute. Virtual interactions also bring social aspects that we need to deal with, because now people do not have to travel and arrive to the physical location of the meeting, which actually change everything. In virtual meeting and session, everyone can come and leave instantly. That's why it's very important to take care of openings and closings, and also allowing space for conscious social interactions. And no doubt that the materials in virtual interactions are different, because now we don't have pens, papers, we don't have tables or chairs, and of course we don't have coffee. So we will go deep to the basics of deploying tech for online collaboration and learning. And from here, also, there's always a cautious optimism about the role that technology can play to support online collaboration and learning. Digital tools facilitate remote and cross-cultural collaboration, enable synchronize, which is a real-time interaction, and a synchronized interaction, and support digital proficiency through exposure to new tools. Technology also allows for learning efforts to be adapted and personalized according to the needs of an individual, as well as for nearly real-time feedback to enable reflective practice by both learners and instructors. But again, these skills the facilitator need to also to practice it and to get used to it, so you can use the digital tools and technology perfectly. Well, still, while there are many benefits of online collaboration, it also presents some challenges. Online collaboration and learning can exclude people who don't have access to devices or to the internet, as we mentioned earlier. Online platforms also can sometimes be expensive to use, and learners may not have enough digital literacy to fully participate. Fortunately, there are ways to mitigate at least some of these challenges. Now, let's review selected components for deploying tech for online collaboration and learning. But still, remember, technology's potential to support working and learning is only powerful as in a way that it's applied. That means that we need to know how to apply it to all of the participants. For example, when we are deciding on a tool to support a specific function, we must evaluate whether people are more likely to have access content from mobile or desktop, um, whether they will be willing to absorb the cost of downloading the large files like audio or video, and we need to think also how comfortable they are with using familiar personal platform, for example, like WhatsApp or Facebook, for professional purposes. And also, for example, using video camera and opening the video camera, especially if it's like a virtual class using a video conference platform. It won't be comfortable for the facilitator when half of the participants are with video off. So if everybody is buying in, this is a successful online session, we can say. We will go through some basics for using the tools also before we see some example of tools. So select the tools based on your audience, first of all. Keep it simple, that large amount of participants can use it. You can review the suggested tools that we will mention later and select the ones that can fit in your needs. But still, in this time, we can see a lot of new tools entering the market, even every day. So we need to find also what are the needs and which new updates or tools we can use. But it's very important also to set up the tools and prepare to use them, and to make sure to give the participants also the support that they need to use the tools. Sometimes it's very good if we stop a few minutes and explain about a tool, a new tool that we are introducing. And even sometimes it's very useful to send a guide, a written guide or a short video of how to use a specific tool. We also can keep a consistent approach, simple as possible. So it will be easy for participants to join the activity and to engage in it. I will give an example. Sometimes we can use through a video conference meeting, we can use a pen and paper even to show it in a screen, and we can have high engagement rate among the participants. The second point, we can talk about the important thing also, that digital tools will work when everyone buys in. I mentioned it shortly before, but for example, if you are in a workplace, assume that employees will hesitate to use a tool that their supervisor is not already using. So it's the same in meetings here. We can't introduce a new tool that we are ourselves not using. So maybe we need sometimes also to map key people who need to get on board and work with them closely to ensure that they are prepared, and maybe others will follow. If you have a possibility, you can also try and track individuals who aren't as engaged and follow up with them to offer more training for them and feedback on what's not working. In an education setting, learning facilitators or trainers have a key role to play in selecting tools and using them. And also the checking and follow up after if the participants are using these tools. A serious collaboration, it's very important also, especially when you are repurposing an existing tool. It will take time and effort to train participants on how to use it. For instance, if you are hosting a discussion group, a book club meeting, or a student meeting, or even a peer-to-peer learning session in a WhatsApp group, that's also possible. WhatsApp is a great tool also that we can use it in a lot of ways. We need to make sure that everyone's familiar with the important features, like in WhatsApp, replying to specific messages when sharing audio or video messages, or how to reply privately. That's a feature that will be very helpful in when using WhatsApp. And there's a lot of WhatsApp features also that we can introduce to our group. Expectations, managing expectations, it's also very important in online session, especially if the groups that we are working with is using the digital tools and technology for the first time, or they are still in the beginning of using these tools. As for example, most product designers will attest, it's rare to deploy a digital tools that everyone loves to use it from the beginning. The same applies to the work and learning contexts. The facilitator have a responsibility not to ensure everyone's thrilled with the platform, but rather to ensure that you are prepared to help those who are struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I really like what you said of managing and managing people's expectations as the facilitator too, because there's so much. There had to be such a quick shift from in-person learning to online, and so we can't keep the same expectations of what we were learning before. Now that we have to learn in this new, completely new way for some people. And I love what you were talking about of taking the time for facilitators to educate about using these tools and making sure that everyone is caught up on it too. And that's a whole nother level, and it takes more time too to get to, and it's not going to be like jumping back to right where people were beforehand, but yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly, and you mentioned it. It's learning a new skill, learning a new way to learn. Some experts, and I think there's also researches on this that say that we can't learn new skill unless we release the previous skills, especially when it's an update on an existing skill. So learning is also a new skill that or actually it's a existing skill that we need to improve and upgrade, and we need to know how to release the previous skills around learning, and to adapt to the new modern age of learning.
Yes.
Well, there's also aspects that I think we are going back to the social aspect that I think it's very important to all of us here. And we need to be mindful of access, safety, inclusion, and respect. This is the case for an in-person collaboration or learning session. It's essential to consider these things of access, safety, and norms. We need to get sometimes maybe more familiar with the group that we have. For example, I will give some examples. If we're talking about access, we need to choose a platform or a tool that we know participants will be able to access at home or on the go. We need to think about the potential data costs before asking participants to upload data or download data. In some regions in the world, still internet content from home or from mobile, it's not that accessible. So we need to keep this in mind. We need to provide options for content that participants can access in low bandwidth environment also sometimes. It's sometimes it's good that we have a plan B for content and tools that won't need a high bandwidth or downloading a lot of content. Safety. Safety, and here we mainly talking about privacy policies of the tools that we are using. We need to evaluate whether these tools are appropriate for our audience, such as terms of service, maybe didn't read summarizes, or how to, or the little letters and words that sometimes at the end of the terms of service. Sometimes there will be also accessibility challenges also. For example, also some of our participants maybe have low vision or limited vision or hearing loss. So we need also to take a look at the websites or tools that have these accessibility features. Inclusion and respect. It's also important to consider how people behave online. Sometimes maybe we need to have a code of conduct. As the facilitators of collaboration or learning space, it is our responsibility to ensure that we set the right tone for inclusion. We need to maintain an environment that is supportive to all participants and learners. We can, for example, invite group participants to develop a shared code of conduct even. Something simple like core principles of respecting others and respecting opinions and ideas that came from other participants, how to debate, and of course to debate ideas, not to debate people. Many of the same principles we can apply in person, we should apply online. Therefore, it's useful to remind participants about this also, that even that we are online and everyone is at his home, we are a group, and we need to maintain the principles that we follow also if we are physically in the same place.
Yes, agreed. When I was doing my facilitation, we would always have a group agreements or code of conduct too, and I think it's really great for everyone to participate in coming up with these ideas. Do you have any examples of things that are or rules or codes that are very different, or that you had to implement now that you're online, like a little, because it is a little different than in person?
Well, yes, it's different, and I can point some of the core code of conduct for online learning. For example, about sharing content. To share content, if it's image, videos, and audio, that it's relevant to the subject of the group. Again, also to keep the group focused on the subject, and also to take care of the content downloading and the cost of using this tool for some people. Other thing, it's very important, as we mentioned also a little bit earlier, about the discussion, to keep it respectful and not to debate people or to speak about the ideas mainly that could help evolve the discussion in the group. And we can also adopt adapt excuse me adopt principles that we use on the regular meetings. For example, being on time. It's very important in online sessions. That could be a great part of code of conduct for online learning. That's few examples of principles for code of conduct. And maybe relative to this, it's to be mindful of digital security also. We need to ensure that the facilitator and the participants understand the security features of each platform that we use, such as what personal information they will need to disclose and have available to other participants, and what end-to-end encryption is built into the tool. Here I can share some issue. For example, a lot of us using WhatsApp, but in WhatsApp, we still don't know who owns the content, actually the shared content. After all, WhatsApp belongs to Facebook, and also the same privacy problem that we share a lot of content, but there's no clear uh, decision on who, for whom belong the content that we share on the WhatsApp or Facebook. Other thing, if sensitive information will be shared, maybe we need to check about using a platform that it's capable of protecting this information. We know there's a lot of free tools, but sometimes free is not secure enough. So maybe we need to find tools and invest a little bit on having a pro plan or more upgraded plans and tools. Something else that we can talk about is that the moderator of the learning is very important. It's, after all, it's like we are building a learning community here. Having a dedicated moderator sometimes is not the same person as the facilitator. This someone can nudge along the conversation, share discussion prompts, and manage conversations. So the participants and the conversation adhere to agreed upon norms and goals. This is one of the most important success factors for any online learning group. And from this aspect also developed all the learning community perspective.
Perfect. Could you give me an example of a learning moderator and what they do specifically?
Well, learning moderator can first of all keep the code of conduct running. He can be the timekeeper also for all the sessions, and if there's assignments or discussions that should end in specific time, so he the one that will need to do that. He moderator can also help the facilitator to know the group and the members of the group. Maybe we move between groups and we facilitate more than one group. So as facilitators, not sure that we can handle all of the members from all of our groups, but a moderator for each group can actually be in interaction with the people, also physically with meetings that held physically in places, in community centers, youth centers, and like this. So sometimes he's like the coordinator of a group in a community center. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, I want to point also to one thing that facilitators need to take important is that even that it's an online facilitation, we need to take it seriously, and we need to prepare a roadmap of discussion prompts and ensure that each group has a dedicated or have a facilitator, and also we need also to prepare a backup plan for when something is going wrong. Two last points here I can share about also that there's no tool that is perfect, and we need also to have some tools in our box for the plan B that we mentioned earlier. One thing also, when we are looking for tools that we want to use, we need also to try and design the session for a variety of participants. Like it's to try and find the wider common common tool that could help the bigger part of the group, and to use it to find the shared skills that the group have, and to which tools they can be adopted. Sometimes we can use also assessment about the digital literacy of our participants, to see and to anticipate which tools we can use, and sometimes also to see who need more support to use the tools that we want to bring in. Track engagement, attention track, for example. It's not easy in digital tools. There's some tools that can help us track how our participants engage, but we need to be careful not to use these tools to, for example, name and shame low performers. Still, we need to see the low performers, or the ones that are not engaging, as there's a challenge for them, and we need to help them. In this aspect, I can share that actually Zoom, the known platform and that one that we are using now, had a attention track feature until 2 months ago, when a lot of people start using Zoom, and actually some people saw this as a privacy breach. So Zoom canceled it, and the explanation was that even that Zoom, the company, is working with a lot of institutions that want to track the attention and the engagement of their users, but still for Zoom, the privacy was in a higher level, and they want to keep the privacy of their participants. But still, attention track can help as the facilitator to learn which content people care most about. For example, we can use, if we sharing a URL, a link to a website, there's a nice website called Bitly that we can use it to see who actually using the URL that we shared. These some tips and basics that can be helpful for us to design our online session and collaboration meeting, and also to make the learning experience executed more professionally, and be more proficient also. But still, we as facilitators, we need to also to develop the expertise to use these tools with the time. We will go now and see some examples of tools that we can use. And we will start. We'll go to the next slide. For some reason it's not. Yeah, okay. So we talked a lot about WhatsApp that we're using. and I think it's a great tool. It can help us keeping the dialogue running and going. Um, and no doubt that it's a powerful tool, WhatsApp, for online collaboration and also for continued learning. It can be accessed on mobile and also on computer. And I think that it's a good thing that we can find it also in computer
Mhm.
via WhatsApp web. And maybe we want to guide our participants how to do it. Maybe not a lot know about it, but it could be a great and easy way to share content also. Um,
And how specifically are you using WhatsApp with your group of youth?
well, before I talk about this, I can say also that in most locations, WhatsApp is a tool that can be used with lower internet or data costs relatively to other tools. But for your question, using a chat app like WhatsApp, first, it shouldn't be done in isolation as one-off activity. It's not a tool that we can just rely on it to maintain our group, but it could help us to faster ongoing discussion or starting the engines for a new group because it's easy, it's accessible, but it's not something that we can rely on. But we can, for example, send the updates about our sessions, our content, our assignments via WhatsApp. We can ask for the follow-up. We can send the questions, the follow-up questions on WhatsApp or reminders for meetings or assignments. We can add also in learning context, we can also encourage participants to share their reflections about a meeting that we had on a messaging app in WhatsApp or if we use another app. So I think reflection on a messaging app, it's a very nice idea. It can help, can be helpful for us facilitators also. No doubt that Facebook Messenger also can be used to send voice messages. Sometimes it's easier for our participants to send voice messages. And this is also could be a good way to have reflection from our participants. Um, 1 minute. 1 minute. Right. The next tool or group of tools is tools that we can use for collecting responses. It's mainly like surveying tools. I mentioned here Poll Everywhere. I think I started using this tool 6 years ago, and back then it was I had to project a website that it's Poll Everywhere on the board in the class, in the physical class, and participants had to send an SMS text message to a specific number. And when they send that, this message, this text message, it will appear on the website that I'm projecting on the board. That's back then, but now it became more easier that in a URL that I can share with a group of people, especially, for example, to share it via WhatsApp. They will get it in their mobile devices, and I can collect responses for a poll that I'm doing or a survey that I'm sharing with them. What's good about these tools is that it doesn't require the participants to create an account. So it's very easy and accessible. We can create and edit surveys, polls, and send a unique link to the others. And that way they submit their votes and responses. And we can visualize the results in front of them. And actually, from my experience in the past few months, that actually here we need also to teach more skills for the participants on how to keep their eye on the shared screen from the facilitators and to use the mobile device if they have, or if they don't have a mobile device to write on it, to move between windows, the window of Zoom, for example, and the window of the link that they opened in the Internet Explorer.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I have not used this, and I'm so excited to share this with everyone, Pull Everywhere, because I think, number one, I loved that you didn't have to create an account. I think there's too many things to remember, and for me and for young people to remember another password and username. And I like how it provides a visual, like you're saying. It is hard to pay attention to a screen for long periods of time, and having that kind of breakup for all the thinking about universal learning and universal design, different ways. We have auditory, so let's break it up with some other different types of visuals instead of, yeah.
Yes, we can point that visualizing the responses, the votes of our participants, it's a key factor to keep them engaged. I can add one feature in Pool Everywhere. I like the feature of word cloud, which collect the responses from the participants, arrange it in a cloud, and actually highlight and enlarge the font size of repeated responses. So we can see how many times or which response is more common. This could help the participants also to see which responses are more common among the fellow participants without names, without the
That's great. And that's so easy. It's so much easier to digest too as a learner, instead of seeing, just presenting information in a different way with a different visual. That's really awesome.
We will go with the whiteboards for brainstorming. I mentioned here Sketch.io and Twiddler. But we can mention also that Zoom itself have a whiteboard. It's a basic feature, but Sketch.io, it's very good when we, for example, want people to collaboratively fill out an existing template. We can prepare a template prior to the session. For example, like a digital collaboration page or a business model for some community projects that we are working in. We invite the participants to do so using an online tool that lets them use pre-made templates, and everybody can see how it proceeds and how it's developing. The free tool Sketchpad from Sketch.io also can provide a digital personal assistant. It's a template that we can load from this tool, and participants can edit themselves also. Yeah. And after that, they can export it to an image or download it as a PDF, and keeping this for themselves also. Twiddler is actually the concept of Twiddler is like flip charts. It's useful for sharing ideas in common space. We have a lot of participants now that they are in a remote locations with internet connections. But here we can bring to life the experience of using flip chart online. It's also free also. There's a free version of it, but there's also like more upgraded features that we can pay for. The next tools that we will talk about is video conferencing. And 1 minute, the slide is not moving. Here, okay. Before the video conferencing, we will talk about Write URL. It's also a collaborative writing tool. It's very useful when, for example, we want people to develop a document. So Write URL, they can write all together. It's more more simple than the ones that we talked about before. And we can also, for example, bring team members that can share reflection and take turns recording their reflections in this website. They can share the link with others in a WhatsApp group or Google Drive, and to invite them to give feedback. We can say also that Google Drive also have good documents with the sharing options and features that we can use also. And the last tool is all about the video conferences. That the main thing is that collaborating in environments that require high security and privacy. So, and we want to give the feeling of a classroom. We want tools that can give us this feeling, also private, secure, and also some kind of a classroom. So I'm not sure that everybody knows about Jitsi, but it proved to be very good and very secure. And we can also use it. It's free. It's the open code platform. It offers secure video conferences. Attendees can log in anonymously also. They don't need to be exposed. And it's not track meeting. It's not tracking the meetings that we do. It allows the host to run video conferences with full privacy for the host and the attendees. So maybe if we know that our group is very strict about the confidentiality, the privacy, so we can use this. Zoom is known, I think, for a lot of people. It's no doubt that it's a leading platform these days. And we must say that recently it had a lot of updates and new features that we should keep an eye on it.
Yes, I think starting tomorrow, there's new passwords that are going to be on each conference call now, because there are so many hackings that were happening. So now each one has a password that you need to enter. Yeah.
Well, yeah. They are developing their security and privacy protocols because this is important in our era, in our age, the age of flowing of information. Privacy is very important. So they're doing a good job, we can say.
Yes.
So we're going through our session, and the last part before the Q&A is actually tips, practical tips on how to run a very proficient session. Steps of preparation, execution, and follow-up of a meeting, an online meeting that can help us. So this is exactly the 3 steps. Prepare, because to be prepared is half the victory. And in the online session, as we mentioned earlier, it's very intense. and it requires a high rate, a high time of preparation. So we need to take this into consideration. For example, we need to define the purpose of the session and who needs to participate. The audience, again, the audience is very important. We need to make the meeting relevant from the start. And we mentioned also the opening before and the closing, but the opening is very important. We need to define the rules, the facilitator and the moderator, as we mentioned earlier also. It's part of the preparation to organize and distribute participation, to make the meeting really collaborative. And this, we mean to have interactive activities along the session and to keep it small pieces, small short chunks of information, like for example, 7 to 10 minutes of facilitating and then an interactive tool. That's why designing the agenda from the beginning with the interactive and the involvement of the participation. We mentioned that if we have a 3-hour session, regular 3-hour session, we need to shrink it to a shorter time. A lot of people say that 1-hour session is reasonable, not more than that. If you have a more than 1 hour, maybe you want to break it to 1 hour, a break, another hour, or 40 minutes, a break, another 40 minutes. Preparing the materials. We need to send, as we mentioned earlier, guidelines if we have short videos of how to use a specific tool, and even materials, worksheet that we want to go through. Maybe it's important to send it prior the session also. Also, if we're going to use links or websites, we need to prepare it for us, the facilitators also. And if we know that we're going to use a website that asks the participants to log in, maybe this we want to send it before the session to the participants. And also, one tip that I really recommend, if you are using a presentation, send all the presentations and the documents beforehand. That's very important also.
Why do you recommend that specifically?
Well, because it's also raised the engagement of the people that, okay, now they see what they are going to go through, and they know they have something in hand now. Maybe we can ask them also to print some of the handouts to have if we are using it, or we have activity with writing. So we can ask them also, mainly to raise the engagement of the participants. Yeah.
Yes, agreed. I think in meetings sometimes, you show up to a meeting or you show up to a group, and for some people, myself included, it takes me a lot longer to process information. So if you're giving information then asking for an answer directly after, I think it's always a great idea to have materials in advance, so people like myself can go through and be able to read and process and be able to come with questions to a certain meeting afterwards. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. One last thing on the preparation to prepare is about the technology, and to make sure that everyone is in the same platform also, and to test everything that we are going to use. And a good habit is to make a habit of that we are facilitators ready 30 minutes before the session, also to be available for support. And this is also important for the moderator that we mentioned earlier. We can also ask the moderator to be ready 30 minutes before and to help with the tech support. And for the preparation, also it's important to have a plan B ready to run all the time. So We go also to the execution. Execute, go slow to go faster. Sometimes we need to go a little bit slower than we planned, or to plan it also to be a little bit slow at the beginning so we can go faster later. But of course, very important also in the beginning to start on time. To make it a habit also, precedent also that we are starting on time. And in the execute, of course, welcoming participants and ask, for example, to get their names visible on Zoom, for example, because there's a new feature that participants can also hide their names, or to make a welcoming greeting on the chat from all of the participants. So this is also an important during the execute of the session and the beginning of the session. We can also ask them to state their names also on speaking as part of the opening activity. It's very important also to use such activities to connect the people and also to check that everybody audio is okay. They can use text on the chat, their video is okay, etc. During the session, we need also to try and be familiar with the rhythm of the group members and our facilitation. We need to manage this rhythm, our facilitation rhythm and the group rhythm. And that's very important to master this so we can try and increase the engagement of the group. But to keep the engagement, to increase it, we need to keep the distributed activities or the participation of the members that was previously organized at the part of preparation. We need to keep it also here to keep the distribution that we planned. And even that we are planning, for example, small chunks of information, 7 to 10 minutes, maybe it's good also to orient the people to write down questions and the notes on the chat, because if we are interrupted, sometimes it's difficult to go back on focus also. And we talked about the opening and the closing. And here we are the last part of the execute is the closing. For example, for closing, it's very helpful if we ask the group to start to document the main points that we had during this session as part of the closing activity. Which ideas and conclusions and decisions, for example, that we had. So to bring them to be more engaged also, and summarizing the session. That's part of the closing part of the session. We can use some of the tools that we mentioned earlier, like Google Docs or Whiteboard, to visualize the closing that we can do also for the session. Sometimes, even that we are planning the session really well, sometimes we lose the time control, and we came to the end of the session, session time, and we didn't do the closing activity that we prepared. So it's very important also to have a short and meaningful closer alternative, because sometimes if an online session ends without a closing, we maybe will lose the session entirely. And if we are losing the session, we will losing the group. The last thing, follow up, do it now, because sometimes later becomes never. So following up is very important. For example, to ask for feedback about the meeting after the session by sending maybe a survey with one of the tools that we mentioned before, if we or our maybe our community center or organization using one tool of surveying and feedback, it's important also to keep using it. For example, what did you as participants find or learn that was meaningful for you in the meeting? What are some important feedbacks about the session that you have? For example, important to ask them also, the participants, what can we do to continue improve our online work, especially if it's a new agenda and new learning way for the participants. We want to give them also the feeling that we are with them, we will be here to listen to them, and we want to improve. It's like checking how was the experience for them. Because sometimes from the feedback and the survey and these short questions, we can find the resistors or those who may have difficulties, for example. These are key people to take look at, to support, and to take care. So our next meetings can be even better. And of course, documenting. Part of the following up is documenting after each session, how was it for us, the facilitators, if we have main points that we want to put down or some action items that we want to do later for the next sessions. Because no doubt that in online sessions, we have a lot of information, and this is an advantage. We need to manage this information. And if it's possible to record the session, so this is a valuable thing. It's very good to record the sessions, of course, after making agreements with the group about it.
That's great. I think I particularly appreciate you inviting, and the follow-up process, inviting our young people in on the learning process too, because everyone is in a new position to learning, and I think having them be a part of that process and having our young people be a part of the brainstorming new ideas and giving feedback is really important, and that you know, we all are learning. They're learning, facilitators and educators are learning these new processes as well. So I think that's a great way to kind of invite young people to around that table of that shared learning experience.
Yeah, no doubt, because if we mentioned learning community earlier, learning community is based on 3 factors: the facilitator itself, the moderator, and of course, the main part is for the participants themselves. So we need to keep listening to them and see what they are thinking about it, and to take care of their ideas and suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so I hope the information and the tips that we introduced here will be helpful for you, all people that followed us. And I think now we can move Yasmin to the Q&A.
Yeah, so thank you so much. All of these tips were so exciting. I was writing a lot during the presentation. No, thank you so much for all of this information, and really excited for all of our facilitators, Play for Peace, trainers, mentors, and outside of the community, educators and other facilitators. So now we'll open it up to questions, Q&As live.